Hey, beautiful friends. This is Sarah Blumenfeld with Networking Done Different, an outreach of and invitation to more.com. I'm pleased to have a returning guest with me today, Melissa Prentice from Bay Area Turning Point. This is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and so we wanted to have her back to tell us a little more about how to recognize domestic violence and what to do if you happen to be in the middle of it. Hey, Melissa.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Great. Happy to be back.
Yes. So what can you share with us today?
Well, I think it would be best to probably start out with what is domestic violence for those that are unfamiliar with it.
Yeah.
Domestic violence is basically a pattern of abusive behavior used to gain and maintain control over a partner. Whenever we talk about domestic violence, a lot of times we're thinking about intimate partners, but there's several different terms that are kind of used interchangeably. They all have their own little subtle differences. So family violence kind of encompasses all the relationships, the family members, relatives, intimate partners, spouses, even roommates are under this code, the Texas Family Code, as well as dating partners. You'll
Okay.
also hear terms like intimate partner violence, which is between intimate partners and or spouses. That's current or former. You'll hear things like family violence, of course, again, which encompasses everything. Domestic violence, again, usually relating to intimate partners, spouses. So it's important to understand first what domestic violence is, but also to understand the prevalence of it. So in the United States, about 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men are going to experience domestic violence in their lifetime. In Texas, it's 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. We just actually got the new updated numbers, statistics from Texas Council on Family Violence for the year of 2022. In the year of 2022, there were 216 intimate partner violence related homicides, which is up from 204 in 2021. So really what Bay Area Turning Point is here to do, our ultimate goal, our pie in the sky kind of thing, is to eliminate domestic violence and sexual assault. Of course, we know that's going to be very difficult to achieve. So in the interim, we have different types of services. We have interventions, and then we have prevention services. Prevention is really that unwiring of your brain to unlearn those unhealthy behaviors, and then rewiring your brain with healthier behaviors. But you also have to have intervention services available for those that are in those situations or have been able to get out of those situations, because the impacts don't stop once they leave.
Oh, for sure. So is domestic violence more than just physical violence?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Can you describe other ways it shows up?
Yes, I'm happy to do that. And also because everything's available on the internet these days, a very good tool to use is the power and control wheel. You can put power and control wheel into a Google search and pull up a very detailed wheel of what domestic violence can look like. But some of the things that we're looking at too, a lot of times, kind of like you were saying, people think domestic violence, they're thinking physical violence. But we also have the verbal violence, which is where there's name calling, insults. We have the psychological aggression, the gaslighting. Making people think that they're crazy. That's basically what gaslighting is. Minimizing their concerns, blaming them for their own abuse, isolating them from any kind of support system that they might have, using threats or intimidation. A lot of times people will start abusing pets in order to intimidate their partners into doing what they would like.
Oh, wow.
They use children. So they'll use children to relay messages during visitations. They'll use children to guilt trip mom or dad into taking the other back, making claims like, we can be a family again, but it's up to your mom in order to bring us all back together. And so they start shifting the view of the child, the view of their mother, to this more hostile kind of view by saying mom's the reason that we're not a family right now, or dad's
Right.
the reason we're not a family right now.
Yeah.
If they change their mind, if they come to their senses, we'll be a family again.
Mhm.
We're also looking at, unfortunately, we do still see a lot of male privilege. We do still live in a patriarchal society. And so men are still in those roles where they're the primary decision makers. They're master of the castle. They're the ones that are to define the men's and women's roles in the
Mhm.
household. We're also looking at economic or financial abuse, where they take the victim's money. They won't allow them access to the money or accounts. Even if the victim is the primary breadwinner, they'll still take the paychecks from that person.
Oh,
And then
wow.
we have other types of coercion, like making somebody do illegal things so they can blackmail them later with it. Well, if you leave me, then I'm going to go to the police because you did this illegal thing that I made you do.
Mm.
Of course, they're not going to go to the police and say they're the ones that made them do it.
Sure.
They'll threaten to report somebody to welfare. They'll threaten to report somebody to immigration if they're
Mm.
undocumented.
Yeah.
So there's so many different ways that domestic violence can manifest. And then, of course, now we're seeing more digital abuse.
Oh,
So
wow. Talk about
yeah,
that a little bit.
so tracking and monitoring through social media. They did just pass
Mhm.
legislation recently that makes it illegal to track somebody, whether that be electronically, their personal property, or following them, which you would think that that would already be against the law, but apparently it
Right?
wasn't.
Isn't that called stalking?
Exactly. In that cost, exactly. That's what you would think. But no,
Mhm.
they just now passed a law saying that it prohibits somebody from tracking another person.
Mhm.
So you can use social media to track people. A lot of times people get on social media pretending to be somebody else, trying to get information out of somebody. They'll start trying to post true or untrue things that really are not suitable for the internet.
Mm.
They'll start blackmailing, but yeah, there's so many different forms of abuse that we see.
Wow. Just keeps growing, huh?
Keeps growing.
Unfortunately.
Exactly.
Yeah. So give us some tips on how people can protect themselves or get out of these situations.
Yeah. So one of the things that we really take into consideration at our agency, and I know pretty much all domestic violence and sexual assault agencies do this,
Mhm.
we want to make sure that safety is the number one priority.
Yeah.
So we are going to extensively and comprehensively safety plan with everybody that comes through our doors, everybody that calls us, because what a lot of people don't understand is out of the situation doesn't mean out of harm.
Yeah.
So a big thing that we hear all the time is, why don't they just leave?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand is sometimes that's the most dangerous advice you can give somebody,
Mm.
because in 2022, 51% of domestic violence related homicides were whenever somebody had either left or they were trying to leave.
Oh, wow.
Because domestic violence is all about power and control.
Yeah.
Whenever their victim is leaving, they've lost control.
Yeah.
And so they're going to go to extreme measures. So,
Mhm.
and oftentimes they won't stop looking for the victim until a year after they've left the relationship. So you have to plan for present and future safety for yourself, your children, work, school, what have you.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah. And so a lot of people, whenever they're trying to plan for safety, don't, if you're in crisis, you're not thinking about a full comprehensive plan.
Yeah. You're
So that's
thinking
what,
you're thinking this much.
yeah. Yeah. How do I stay safe right now?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But we need to think about how we're going to stay safe.
Wow.
There's separate safety tips for preparing to leave.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
just off the top of my head, and these are not by all means an exhaustive list of safety tips, just some of the ones that we do give. Again, these should be tailored to the person's situation,
Mhm.
but making sure that they have all of their important documents with them, theirs and their children. So that being birth certificates, license, ID, social security cards, bank
Passport.
statements, insurance paperwork.
Mhm.
You want to make sure you have all of those. Have clothing packed in case you need to get up and go. Keep some money hidden aside if you're able to. A lot of people aren't able to because the abuser's taking all the money.
Yeah.
But if you're able to, see if you can stash it somewhere. See if somebody can hang on to it for you. See if you can open up a separate account that they have no access to.
Yeah.
Same thing with email. I like to tell people to create an email that the abuser doesn't know about.
Mm.
One of the biggest tips that I always give somebody, especially if they're still in the situation, is to establish a code word with a friend or family member, somebody in their support system,
Yeah.
somebody that they trust. This can be a word or a phrase. If they say this phrase, they text it, they call, they come up with an action item, and the person on the other end performs that action item. So for example, let's say we use the code word, I don't know, throw me out a word.
Hummingbird.
Hummingbird. Okay. So I text my mom, hummingbird. Mom knows to call the police and send somebody to come get me because I'm in an emergency.
Yeah.
So that's what we try to do with people, is make sure that they have a code with somebody. One time I was on a hotline with somebody and I just threw out a random word. I'm not going to say what it was, but I just threw out a random word and I explained the point of the code word to her. And she got quiet for a second. I said, "Are you still there? Are you okay?" She goes, "Yeah, I'm texting my friend real quick what this code word is." So she was doing it right there with me on the phone. And of course, I'm okay with this.
Yeah.
I'm like, she's like, "I'm so sorry. I know you're busy." I'm like, nope, I'm not too busy for this.
Right. Yeah.
Do what you have to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to stay out of rooms where there might be weapons, or rooms that it's going to be hard to get out of those spaces. So you don't want to get trapped in a bathroom.
Wow, that's a tough one.
Yeah, you do not want to get trapped in a bathroom because that's going to be very difficult to get out of. You don't want to get trapped in the kitchen. The kitchen is full of weapons.
Right.
That's where all your knives and all your sharp things are.
But how do you not do that? I mean, you have to go to the bathroom.
That's true. I'm saying this is more if there's a fight already broken out.
Oh,
you don't
gotcha.
want to back yourself into a corner.
Oh, I see.
That you
Like,
can't
don't
get out
run and
of.
hide in the bathroom because then you're trapped.
Yeah, but then
gotcha.
there are those, good point. There are those incidents where they will try to corner you in the bathroom. This one, I don't really like giving this one out, but sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes the victims of domestic abuse notice what triggers the abuser to go into their abusive habits or their abusive behaviors.
Right.
And so we tell them, if they have noticed what some of those triggers are, try to avoid those until you're able to safely get out.
Yeah.
If there's children involved, making sure that they stay out of the fight, and that they know who to run to or call. Like if there's a neighbor, for example, run to this neighbor's house if mommy and daddy get into a fight. We want to make sure that children aren't getting themselves involved because they could get hurt.
Sure.
They could severely get hurt. So if they can't get out of the house, we want to make sure that they know of a hiding place that they can go to. Of course, letting people know of the abuse if it's safe to do so. Sometimes the neighbors are friends of the abuser. They may not be on your side. So that might not be a good tip to give.
Sure.
Yeah. Some of the other things, we talk about protective orders. So this is a civil order that they can get, an order of protection, which will keep the abuser 200 feet away from home, work, and school. So it's important to know what the protective order covers, because, sometimes people will go to the gym and their abuser shows up and it's like, "Nope, I have this order of protection. You're supposed to stay 200 feet away from me," but it doesn't cover the gym.
Or the grocery store.
Yeah. So you want a safety plan with and without that protective order.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I always tell people, if you don't know who's at the door, somebody's knocking at the door, you don't know who it is, don't answer or require identification. I'm the type that don't answer for anybody.
Right.
Because the people that are supposed to be at my house, first of all, know that you do not come knock at my front door or ring my doorbell. I even have a sign out front that says, "Do not knock or ring the doorbell, that there is a crazy dog here. The dog will bark, mom will yell." Yeah.
It won't be pretty.
Yeah. I'm not going to say exactly what the rest of the sign says, but
this is a family show.
Yeah. But at the same time, I know if they're at my front door, there's a good chance they're not supposed to be there.
Yeah.
No, it could just be a solicitor, which, whatever. I'm not interested in buying whatever product.
Right.
Now, a lot of times I will go check. I also have a camera out front now. And that's another thing that we talk about with people is
Mhm.
if you're able to install a camera out front so you can see who's at your front door.
Yeah,
I've got a
yeah.
camera on my front door and my back door. So if if it looks like somebody that's probably in chaos or in crisis, I
Mhm.
know, hey, this person might need help. So I can go out and, assess that situation. Of course, I'm
Right.
going to go out the back door and kind of come approach from the side, but that's just me. So getting those ring cameras, and there's some organizations, including our own, that will provide those.
Oh, that's nice.
They want them. But yeah, I mean, of course, we say call the police if you feel safe doing so. And the important part is if you feel safe doing so, because
Yeah,
it's not safe for everybody to call the police.
yeah.
Sometimes that can escalate the situation. Sometimes,
Okay.
unfortunately, the abuser is the police. We come into those situations sometimes. Now,
Man,
we do
that's
have,
tough.
yeah,
That's really tough.
yeah, but we let them guide that.
Yeah.
So whenever we safety plan with people, it's not us driving that conversation. Yes, we are there to provide those tips for you,
Mhm.
but it's going to keep you safe, not
Yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm going to help you brainstorm some tips, but ultimately you're going to be the one to come up with your plan. And then, of course, if you're trying to leave, you want to come up with an escape plan. If your local law enforcement has the civil standbys, call them to come out and sit in front of your house while you're leaving in case the abuser comes home. A lot of
Mm,
people like to make their getaway while their abuser's at work, but if the abuser catches wind that they may be trying to leave, they might come home early.
yeah.
I've actually had that experience with somebody. It was actually an acquaintance that had reached out to me, and I was like, "Do you think that your abuser has caught wind that you're trying to move out?" She goes, "Yeah, I think so, but I'm going to do it while he's at work." I was like, "Well, if he caught wind, he might be coming home early. I would call your local police department to see if they do civil standby." Sure
Mhm.
enough, she called. They did do civil standby, and sure enough, the abuser came home as she was trying to leave.
Mm.
So
But the
that's a
police
good,
were there, so that kind of sent
yeah,
him on his way, I hope.
yeah, exactly. I haven't really had much contact with that person since, but I hope everything is okay since then. But as far
Yeah.
as I know, she got out safe and sound, and she was able to restart. She was able to start over.
Mhm,
But yeah,
mhm.
there's so many different things that go into safety. And then, of course, like I said, sometimes they'll search for you for up to a year after leaving. So it's important to plan for that future safety as well. You want to make sure that whenever you are leaving, you have an escape route too. You have evidence of the abuse, you have your medications filled, you seek out a place to go ahead of time.
Because
So
a lot of times they don't have money, like, they can't go rent a hotel room or something.
exactly. So
Mm,
that's whenever you have to lean on your support system, which unfortunately kind of goes back to the isolation piece of domestic violence. Abusers will try to separate their victims from any kind of support system. So part of the safety is to make sure that you don't cut off from your support system. You have some sort of support system. But that's
mhm.
also a red flag of domestic abuse is they do try to cut you off from everybody.
Yeah.
So that's
They'll
something to
tell you
look.
not to talk to your family, not to interact with friends. That's what you
Mhm.
mean by cut off, yeah.
Yeah, and they'll do it subtly too, though.
Mhm.
They'll use their jealousy as an excuse,
Mm.
or some type of low self-esteem as the excuse, like making the victim think, oh, your family doesn't like me, they're trying to sabotage our relationship. They'll use those kind of things to subtly
Oh,
separate the victim away from their family.
oh, gotcha.
Yeah. But then, of course, once you leave an abusive relationship, now there's the recovery process,
Mhm.
which is a whole different beast to tackle.
Yeah, yeah. How do you help people with that?
So there's a number of different ways to kind of help with that. And of course, it's the same thing as the safety planning. You have to look at what works for you. All of us are our own unique individuals. We know what's going to work for us. So some of the things that people are going to experience after leaving a domestic violence situation, of course, PTSD can be one of those things. Anxiety, depression, much lower self-esteem, dissociation. They're going to start numbing themselves. We could see people turning to substance abuse to try to numb themselves.
Right.
And so, of course, I always tell people to look into counseling or therapy, but that's not always going to be the go-to.
Mm-hmm.
Some people aren't ready for that. And so really it's not forcing anything onto anybody. It's just giving options. But counseling and therapy can really help.
Yeah.
You know, try to understand and process things, because going through leaving a domestic violence situation, you're still going to go through those grief stages.
Yeah.
And so it's helpful to have somebody there, a professional there to help you process those stages. And so we do provide free counseling services at Bay Area Turning Point. There are several other resources in the area that provide counseling services, but that's one of the things that they can do. Like I said earlier, you want to make sure you have a support system, at
Mm-hmm.
least a couple of people in that support system to lean on and to help guide you through this. One of the big things that the support system needs to do is to listen without judgment. You know,
Well, good luck on that.
yeah, right. Not go into that victim blaming mentality of, well,
Yeah.
why did you stay? Why didn't you just leave? Don't
Right.
you know the kind of danger that you were in?
Yeah.
You know, that a lot of people and
Doesn't
that's
really
why,
help.
yeah, that's why it's important to understand the dynamics behind it and why people don't leave,
Yeah. Yeah.
because then you can start listening more without judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you got to listen with empathy. And sometimes the best thing to say is nothing at all.
Yes.
Or just to validate, yeah, that sucks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That really sucks. You know, you don't,
Yeah.
not everybody needs advice. And sometimes advice can be harmful
Sure.
because you're giving them advice that doesn't apply, or you're giving them advice that can make things worse.
Right.
If people don't ask for advice, don't give advice.
Right.
That's one of the big things that I can tell people that are part of the support system. Something else I like to tell people, because a lot of times whenever they've been through a violent situation, they stop doing anything that they enjoyed previously. Any of their interests became just nothing.
Yeah.
Their interest was strictly the abuser. So what I like to tell people too is to start doing things again that you were interested in.
Yeah.
You know, try to regain that confidence back. Try to bring that joy back to your life. We did a book club a couple of years ago, and the author actually joined the book club with us.
Oh, that's fun.
She wrote about her own, and I cannot think of the name of the book to save my life. It was so good though. But she wrote about her own experience. And one of the things that she did to finally get her self-esteem back up enough to leave this abuser was she would write empowering affirmations on sticky notes and just start putting them up all around her house on the mirrors. The abuser was getting mad, would tear them down. The second he tore them down, she'd put them right back up. Until she kept doing it until she started believing those.
Yeah.
And then she was able to gain that confidence back to leave. Let's see. You want to know what some of the resources are in the area. Of course, Bay Area Turning Point is a resource for parts of Galveston County, Harris County, Chambers County, Brazoria County, but you also have Galveston Resource and Crisis Center. You have the Bridge Over Troubled Waters in Pasadena. You've got Sarah's House in Pasadena, Brazoria County Women's Center, Houston Area Women's Center. There's so many different centers that provide these services. And if we don't provide the services, we're going to get you connected with somebody who does provide services that you're needing. So like our organization doesn't provide legal services. We'll get you connected with Texas Advocacy Project or Aid to Victims of Domestic Abuse or Lone Star Legal Aid. People that don't have their IDs, sometimes they're leaving with nothing because they got to get out that fast.
Yeah.
And so we work with Operation ID in order to get their IDs back. So there's so many different resources. You just have to know where to look. And I'm going to say on here that we are a starting point. We don't provide that service. We're going to get you connected with it.
Right.
Something that they always tell counselors and advocates is to focus on the survivor strengths. in order to help them through it. So, and it's important for survivors to know that too, to know what your strengths are, because we're going to use those to push through.
Yeah. Yeah.
To really push through. You want to look at what has worked before, emotional wise, like emotional safety wise. What have you done before to cope? What kind of at least got you level headed enough to survive the day? So we want to look at what's worked before, focus on those strengths. On top of a safety plan, you want to have a self-care plan in place.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
are you interested? I mean, does mindful breathing or mindful mindfulness exercises work? That's what I was trying to say. Meditation, does that work? Exercising, does that work? Decluttering your space, does that work? Proper nutrition. And I think I've told you about this, but I've been taking this course online about nutrition and mental health. And it is absolutely amazing how much nutrition plays into your mental health.
Yes, absolutely. And people have no idea.
Yeah, like of course, I'm not going to tell anybody to do something that I have not tried myself. And so I've really tried to focus more on my nutrition, and I have noticed such a boost in my mood.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
So yeah, I mean, just starting with something as simple as that is, working on your nutrition, and it doesn't have to be expensive. And then, of course, biggest one that I can say is set boundaries. Learn about boundaries, set boundaries, stick to the boundaries. People
Like,
don't
give an
understand that.
example.
Well, saying no, for one.
Okay.
People don't understand that no is a full sentence. I don't have to explain myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're uncomfortable with something, tell people. So we have different types of boundaries, right? We have physical boundaries, which relates more to touch. If you're uncomfortable with somebody coming up and hugging you, tell them you're uncomfortable with it.
Right. Or even standing too close, right?
Standing too close. I hate when people stand too close to me.
Yeah.
Like I'm getting better with hugs. There was a long time that I did not want anybody hugging me. I don't mind as long as you ask first, but people are uncomfortable with it.
Yeah.
And so it's okay to establish those boundaries, but boundaries are really telling people how you expect to be treated. So a lot of people hear the golden rule, treat people the way you want to be treated. But for example, what if I don't want to be treated the way you want to be treated?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I want to be treated the way I want to be treated.
Right.
So
Well, and
that's
energetic boundaries are so important
Yeah.
too, just having the energy of being in your own power. And then you're radiating that out to people, and they're not going to mess with you as much as if you're radiating out the energy of being a victim, right?
Exactly. Well, and one thing about abusers, they don't like boundaries.
Sure, of course.
Abusers don't like boundaries, and they don't like people that have boundaries. So a lot of times they're not going to target people that have boundaries.
Yeah, yeah.
Or they may try to tear down your boundaries, but if you stand firm, yeah, you may have missed out on what you thought was going to be a great relationship. But if a lot of times that's one of the signs that you can look for is early off if they are not respecting boundaries.
Yeah, I think that's important, really important. The early on in a relationship, don't sweep something under the rug. If something sends off a little red flag in your brain, stop, get out.
Exactly. One of the other ones that I talk about a lot is time boundaries.
Okay.
A lot of people think that they're entitled to your time, and abusers do as well.
Yeah.
Because once you really start looking at it, they require all of your time, all of your energy. They suck you dry of your energy, and they suck you dry of your time. So it's important to set time boundaries too, because nobody's entitled to your time.
Right.
Only you are the one that decides who gets your time.
Yeah.
So that's another big one. Intellectual boundaries. This is where I bump heads with people a lot. I don't need you telling me that my opinion is stupid. I'm not going to tell you that your opinion is stupid. We can respectfully disagree.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to tolerate somebody making me feel less than or trying to make me feel stupid because they don't agree with my viewpoint on something.
Right, right.
And I'm going to try to understand somebody's viewpoint on something. Like I'm looking at something right now I don't necessarily agree with it, but I'm trying to understand it. So I'm not like, because, first thing I'm looking at this thing and I'm just like, oh my God, this is terrible. Why would people even think this? But I
Right.
started looking more into the mindset behind it. And I'm like, okay, I don't agree with it, but I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
So
and it's a matter of self-respect and respect for others, right?
exactly. Self-respect and respect for others. So
Mhm.
that's, of course, that's scratching the surface on what some people can do, but scratching the surface is good because it
Sure.
at least gives you a starting point.
Yeah.
Because there's so much recovery to be done getting out of these relationships.
And I'm sure that it's much harder if there are children involved and visitation and all that you have to keep interacting with this person or at least send your children over there.
Yeah,
That's a whole
unfortunately.
nother can of worms, right?
Exactly. So you got to prepare for the safety for that, for the exchanges, but
Hmm.
also for how to handle some of the messages that have been given to your children by the abusive partner,
Yeah.
how to respond to those, and how to remain safe, period. If it's not safe to go to this person's house, trying to find a neutral location where it's
Hmm.
going to be safe.
Hmm.
But also protecting your emotional safety, just seeing the person. Just because you got out of
Right.
the relationship, you realize that, you're worth more than that. It doesn't mean those feelings won't come rushing back whenever you see them.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So plan ahead, plan ahead, plan ahead.
Always plan ahead.
And
And,
again,
there's
plan
even,
ahead.
yeah, there's even safety planning templates online. Like you can just put in safety
Oh,
plan online.
uh-huh.
And there are just different types of templates that can help you plan for all sorts of safety, your emotional safety, your physical safety, all sorts of things.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. That's the one lovely part about having Google at your fingertips these days.
Right, right. So as far as if someone didn't know where to go, just go online and Google domestic violence help or something like that?
They can, if you put in domestic violence, most likely the first thing that's going to pop up is the National Domestic Violence Hotline.
Okay.
If you call that hotline, then they are going to connect you to a local resource in the area that you're in. But
Oh, okay.
for Bay Area Turning Point in particular, for people in the Webster area, Webster and surrounding areas, also Chambers County, like I said, all the counties that I said earlier,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
parts of Galveston County, Brazoria County, Fort Bend, Montgomery, Harris, Chambers. You can call our 24-hour hotline, which is 281-286-2525. Or you can go online at bayareaturningpoint.org. But if you're in immediate crisis, definitely call that hotline.
Right, right. Wow, that's some great information, Melissa. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for letting me come on and share that information
Yeah,
because we are in Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
absolutely. And it's important to I think when people hear about these things, if they are in a situation, maybe it helps them feel less alone,
Yeah.
right? It's like, wow, this is really prevalent. It's not just me.
Yeah.
So I deserve to go get out of here and get some help.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And a lot of people don't reach out to help because they think that they don't realize that they're going through domestic violence.
Yeah.
They don't know if
Yeah.
the resource is available, or like you just said, they think that they're the only one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, you're not, if you are going through it, you're definitely not alone. There's so many people going through it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we would all like to help make that less.
Yes. Yes. Like I said, our ultimate goal, I always joke with people about this, but it's not a joke, it's the truth. Our
Right.
job is to try to put ourselves out of the job
Yeah. Yeah.
because there won't be a need for domestic violence services. But we know that that's probably not going to happen. So, as much as we would like to remain optimistic that eventually it will, we're trying to reduce the harms
Yeah.
by educating, by providing these services, emergency shelter, rental assistance to get them out of their homes, counseling services, outreach and education services, advocacy services.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a lot. It's good to know these great resources out there to help people that are going through this.
Yes, of course. You know, and I wish I could say that we had enough beds for everybody that needs one in the shelter, but unfortunately, that's just not the case. In Harris
Yeah.
County, we only have 330 beds for thousands of people that are trying to escape. And so we're really
Yeah.
having to look at how can we help people remain safe? How can we get them out of these situations? You know, because again, the shelter space just is not that much compared to the
Yeah.
need.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's necessary to really reduce the harms. You know, we have to start holding abusers accountable more.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Anything else as we wrap up?
I think that about covers it.
Okay.
Of course, if people would like to learn more, they can call us at that hotline number. Again, that's 281-286-2525. Or they can email me, which is mprentice, MPRENTICE at bayareaturning.org.
Okay, great. And do you need volunteers or anything like that?
We always need volunteers.
Always need volunteers. Okay.
Love our volunteers. So we do have several volunteer opportunities. One of the big ones that we love for people to come volunteer for is our crisis hotline. Just be mindful that if you do come in and apply for that volunteer position, you will be speaking directly with people that are experiencing domestic violence and sexual assault. So you're going to be that first point of contact with them to segue them into our services.
Yeah.
We also have we have some administrative jobs, some clerical, some cleaning, sorting, donations, childcare at the shelter. We have people that do special projects, like come in and do landscaping or groundskeeping for us. And then we also have people that like to do drives, donation drives.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we definitely always accept donation drives. You can get in touch with our operations director, Sybil Winters Little, if you're interested in doing a donation drive. She will get you a list of what we are needing. And then, of course, we're always taking donations as well. So that can be monetary donations, or at our donation center, we're always taking clothing or clothing accessories. If you have other stuff, please call to see if we are accepting those. But for the most part, it's clothing accessories, and then also things that are on our needs list.
Okay, which is on your website?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it changes monthly. So October's is up right now. You can click on that, and it will also take you directly to our Amazon wish list, where you can order directly on Amazon, and it's sent straight to us.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful way to do it.
Absolutely.
All right, Melissa. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate the work that you do in Bay Area Turning Point to help people in need in our area. And we hope folks will reach out to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah.
You're welcome. Thank you, friends, for listening. Always appreciate you taking the time. If you would like to be interviewed, please email me at networkingdonedifferent@gmail.com. See you next time.